Stage and Screen with Andy Snowden. Let us know what you want to hear on WhatsApp with the number 01978 540 410. We love local. Calon FM.
Got my mind set on you from the legendary George Harrison. And something about George, the George Harrison story, a musical biopic about the so-called Quiet Beatle. It's back, following on from a hugely successful 2023 tour, celebrating what would have been George's 80th birthday. Featuring a five-piece band performing beautiful songs such as My Sweet Lord, Something, Got My Mind Set on You there, and Handle with Care. The show includes incredible solo material and music from rock and roll's greatest supergroup, that being the Travelling Wilburys, not forgetting, of course, more than a few Beatles classics along the way. It stars West End actor and musician Daniel Taylor and will be coming to the William Aston Hall on Saturday the 16th of March. And I caught up with Daniel earlier this week to explain all. Well, it's incredibly, I noticed the other day, it's been a year almost to the day since we were talking when you came to Theatre Clwyd last year. It's been a pretty successful run, this one, hasn't it?
It has. I think it's snowballed somewhat. I think that really when you talk to the producers and they're AVing you, they're already AVing me for next year now.
Wow.
And I just kind of, what? We started, this was, I think it was only me and the drummer who were on the initial the beginnings of this show. The way that it's just sort of snowballed is really, it's taken me by surprise somewhat. Not because I don't think it's any good. I think it's an absolute fantastic show, and I think it's long overdue, is to do a show about George Harrison and his life, especially after the Beatles, because he crammed so much in. And he only passed away when he was 58, so he was still relatively young, so, and the music as well is timeless, isn't it? So the songs, good songs, they feel like they've been around forever. And I think especially songs like Here Comes the Sun and Something and My Sweet Lord, they all feel like they've been around for forever.
Yeah.
While My Guitar Gently Weeps. But the show has just been absolutely phenomenal. I think we said it actually, Andy, whenever Bill Kenwright used to talk about Blood Brothers, he used to always say that Willie Russell had said to him that if he got anything right, he got the last sort of 10 minutes or so of Blood Brothers, of a musical he'd written. And I think with this it's come together quite naturally. And I won't give too much away, but I feel the way that it builds right the way through, the choices of songs that we've used from his Beatle life and also his solo work is well balanced, obviously. And we've got the Travelling Wilburys in there as well, so is well balanced. And of course you can't get everything in there. There's always songs that you've got to leave out, and it's so difficult because there's so many good ones. But the show itself it is really snowballed, and we're turning up at theatres in the full, and for a new show. What did it do? It did its Edinburgh run last year, where you kind of go to get your stripes, but it had already done a few theatres before that. But I think it's just, they've struck gold, the producers, they really have, and we've got a fantastic band. 4-piece band, the best sort of, I guess, session players that you could find around sort of the Northwest, really. So, we've got all of that. And what goes on behind me is this incredible sort of imagery video, which is sort of playing throughout the whole show, sort of imagery of life back then when George was alive, old Liverpool, and what was going on in the world. It's quite moving. So, it's been amazing. It really has. I'm really enjoying it as well. I'm enjoying doing it as well.
Absolutely fascinating. Well, I as you know, I came to see it in Theatre Clwyd last year, and you've used the word snowballed. And Well, just to put it into perspective for people, that was the weekend that the whole country was hit by a massive snow blizzard. So the second night at Theatre Clue had to be cancelled. So it's a great opportunity with you coming back to Wrexham with this one to for anybody that missed it to get over to the William Aston Hall and check it out. It is a corker.
Yeah, I've weirdly not done anything at the William Aston Hall when thinking that, sort of background with Clue Theatre and that,
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. I've seen a few pantos there over the years. I remember seeing going up there to see my old mate Matty Gollidge after he finished college, but I've not really done a great deal up in Wrexham, so I'm really looking forward to it, and just I'm just enjoying it. I'm enjoying the journey. It's great. I'm looking forward to being in Wrexham and Real, obviously. So
well, it's a fantastic space, and it's very quickly become one of the best venues in North Wales for pretty much anything. You can put anything in there from a rock show like yourselves, or as you say, a pantomime. It's and now of course it's being run by Theatre Clue, and I think that's where the popularity has really come to its own, especially after lockdown, because it was closed down after lockdown, as you can imagine. But yeah, it's fantastic now. But last year you played the Philharmonic in Liverpool on what would have been the 80th birthday of George Harrison, and I've read so many fantastic things about that evening. Tell us about that. What was that like?
Well, that evening it was. I'll tell you, Andy. You know, Long, that we've been sort of in this game and just trying to sort of make a living, if you like. I think, I was up there and it was packed. It was full. I've got all my family in. My mum's on the front row. There she is. And we've got the Harrison family in as well, which I didn't know. I'm glad no one told me, actually, because
yeah.
I think my underpants would have been even browner than they already were anyway. So we did the show, and it was one of those nights. Of course, we had some of the Liverpool Philharmonic String Orchestra that joined us for that evening, and they played on sort of 5 of the songs through the second act of the show, leading right up to the end, which was incredible. And we also had Liverpool Choir as well. So we had 40, 50 choir on stage with this incredible imagery, with our own touring band, of course.
Yeah.
We've got all these string players. And we got to the end of the show, and I just looked up. I was like, how the hell did I get through that? And I just thought, it's one of those moments, I tell you, you go, all those plays that you've done for free, all those sofas you sort of crashed on, where while you're trying to get your career off the ground and all of that. And it just really, I don't know, for me, it was just it was a real highlight in this sort of business that I ended up in. And I was actually, for the first time, I gave myself a little pat on the shoulder and nice one, Taylor, you've done all right there. Yeah, that was a good night.
Yeah.
We had the Harrisons, his family came up from the south, and I didn't know, and I saw them all afterwards, and I was absolutely, it just knocked me for a sec. I couldn't believe that they were in, and they were just telling me how much that George would have loved this show. This is, the perfect sort of nod to him, to do that on his 80th, a few miles from where he grew up in Wavertree. It was just incredible experience, really. And I've never played there before, and I'd heard so much about it. And when I did the sound check in the Philharmonic, I'd never heard sound like it.
Yeah.
It was just, that blew me away in itself, was just the acoustics of the place. And just walking around backstage and just seeing who, Glenn Campbell a bit,
Yeah.
only heroes, do you know what I mean? I was like, whoa, Weller's been here. God, anyone else? It was just incredible. It's just iconic stage and to sort of have played on,
But I think it's quite a unique building in the fact that the downstairs bit is smaller than the balcony. The balcony's huge, and downstairs is at like 10 rows or something. It's just a weird thing, and I think that must be something to do with the acoustic in there, because it is quite high. Well, it is very high, isn't it? Let's get face it.
Yeah, it is. It goes back for miles as well. but yeah, it's one of those places. You know, look, we've been in hundreds of theatres, and you know, you never take any of it for granted. But when we got into the Philharmonic, and to do that on his birthday as well, it was a real highlight. So honestly, we still talk about it to this day. I think our producer Bill, he I'd never seen. He was all tearful, and I went, "What's happened, Bill?" He went, "That was amazing." I went, "What did I do?" And he went, it was just one of those shows. I don't know. Everything just sort of fell into place, and it just, and the manager of the theatre was there. And, you know, obviously they've had everyone come through the doors. He just said that was incredible and thank you so much. And it was amazing. It was something I won't forget, you know.
Fantastic. But you've also, I mean, you had tremendous success with playing John Lennon in Lennon Through a Glass Onion. But this is a very different kettle of fish, this, isn't it? This is you. You're not actually playing George Harrison. You're telling the life story of George, or the career indeed, through the eyes of Daniel Taylor. Is that fair?
Yeah, and as someone that's, as Daniel, as myself, as you know, I'm a songwriter myself, as you know, and you know, I guess it's songwriting's one of those things. It was just a bit of a hobby, really. It's something I found quite cathartic, and I just enjoyed doing it. And I think from that perspective, I love songcraft, and someone like Harrison, and just seeing how he sort of things developed and why they developed and everything else. I'm quite sort of, I enjoy talking about it, and I enjoy, I mean, obviously I love the Beatles. I mean, I don't know many people that don't, because I don't think there'll ever be a band like them ever again. But yeah. I think with John Lennon, that was obviously another big show, but to be John and to get into his sort of mind, if you like, and because he was such a complex character, it had so much sort of tragedy that sort of went on in the background with losing his mum and this, that, and the other. But it was, that was being John, and his widow Yoko Ono was involved with that, so there was another pressure there as well.
Right.
And we finished that tour. We did an 8-country tour. We finished in Los Angeles. That was pretty amazing. But this is equally as amazing, and I'm so important, really, as well. You know, it's some of the things that you just will never be a people that surprises people. Is, you know, is obviously with all the travelling Wilburys and how that came about, and always makes me laugh, that whole story of, you know, he was just going to go and started to work with Jeff Lynne, and he was just going to book a studio one day, and he was just going to write something on that day, and Jeff Lynne said he'd like to sort of be involved, you know, who in passing told Roy Orbison, you know, Roy Orbison's like, "Oh, can I come and watch you work?" Then I think Jeff Lynne heads over to Tom Petty's house and tells him, Tom Petty's like, "Oh, I was wondering what I was doing tomorrow." So then he's involved. It's just how this group came about. And then, of course, they've got to find a studio. And, if your name's George Harrison, who do you call? Well, you call Bob Dylan, don't you? You know, so it's just the whole thing. The whole thing just sort of snowballs again. And then you've got this, what is, you know, the first ever supergroup, really. And they went on and wrote these 2 brilliant albums. But we've got all the stuff with his concert for Bangladesh, which was really the first Live Aid of itself.
Yeah.
First concert for Manchester, you know, after the bombings there. So he'd really done the blueprint for a lot of these large scale charity concerts, you know, like Live Aid and that really followed. And of course, there's his life where, you know, he had this crazy love life as well, you know.
Well, I was going to say to you, because the whole show, I mean, there were so many surprises about his private life that you know, I mean, you would, obviously the Eric Clapton essentially stealing his wife, and him being so such a gentleman about it. That's quite a shock. That I mean, it took me back. That did when that bit in the show. But which bit would you say surprised you most about the man?
Well, that was what I think. That bit always takes me by surprise. I must have said it about 100. I still think, I go, what was the thinking there?
Yeah.
But he's like, amazingly, George didn't hold a grudge.
No?
When asked if he'd written a musical, he said, I'd rather she was with him than some dope. I don't know what he'd been, maybe, he was on something that day, I don't know, but some happy stuff. But yeah, he was quite, and the thing is, they actually remained mates. It was completely, I think she's, I've heard actually that they're selling the love letters. So she's selling the love letters, Patty, from Eric and George. That was I think that was in the Telegraph. Someone told me a few days ago. Right. But yes, she's going to be selling her letters. But there you go.
But I mean, I think even when he died, there was so much being spoken about him in the news and whatnot that you knew he was a lovely fella. But I mean, that's another level, isn't it? Being okay with somebody stealing your wife. I mean,
he's just cool. he's probably one of the coolest people I've ever come up or is. Yeah. He's just like, but do you know what? It's like all the things that I've done over the years. It's like when we started playing these songs in the rehearsal room and going through all the narrative with our director, Gareth, the Price, and I was just going through it and reading it and playing these songs, and it was like this, every day we'd come in and there was like this zen in the room. I can't explain it. No? But whatever was going on, what crazy was going on in at home or wherever else, it just seemed to be left at the door. Yeah. Because it's just what sort of lives on in his music. I can't explain it. There is a real karma and peace about this whole thing. I don't know what other way to explain it, it comes, I guess, from his sort of what he brought when he was on the earth. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
But the back catalogue of George Harrison is so vast. I mean, obviously, the Beatles and his solo career and the Travelling Wilburys, of course. And I mean, it must be quite difficult because this is a 2-hour show. This quite easy to fill with 2 hours, I imagine. And you must have people disappointed that you haven't played their favourite. So that must be the biggest headache, really, what to leave in and what to leave out.
Well, this is it. Yeah, this is always going to be I'm not going to give anything away and tell you what's in and what's out, but everything, they've done a pretty good job at balancing it. It's an impossible job. We'll have to do a sequel.
Yeah.
Come back and, but it is all, you've got to get the, of course, there's the Wilburys stuff, and it's balancing it with his Beatles stuff as well, and the success of his own albums, but we focus, the show begins, it focuses on his first, what would have been his first official solo album. It wasn't Wonderwall Music was technically George's first solo album, but the Beatles hadn't officially dissolved, so All Things Must Pass was the real sort of masterpiece. And the songs that were on there that he'd written, many of while he was in the Beatles, but had never been sort of selected for release or chosen. But there was always that thing as well with him that we mentioned that in 1965, with all the songs he'd written, he could have recorded 100 Beatle albums. That was just in 1965, he said, with all the songs he'd written.
Wow.
And it was just the frustration, because it was Lennon and McCartney that led that whole thing. And I think there was a lot of frustration for George. He left the band at one point, didn't he? And he came back. So I think it was frustrating for him, because he's obviously got this amazing ability as a songwriter himself. I think so. I was reading it actually the other week. When they were at Abbey Road once, they were all went off into rooms, into like little studios, and they would go away for hours and write things, and then come back. And George went away, and I think he'd written something. And he came back, as someone described, there was Paul McCartney just came in with this really smug grin on his face, because he knew he'd written something quite special.
Yeah.
But there was no hide. I mean, God, what's the most played Beatles song? What do you think it is?
Well, it would be something like Love Me Do or something, would it? No?
No, I only found this out recently as well. It's Here Comes the Sun, most played Beatles song ever, or the most streams on the sort of the Spotify's and all of those platforms. But yeah, Here Comes the Sun, and ironically, it's George Harrison's, of course. So that kind of, I thought that was quite ironic when I read that. So.
Yeah, but he's known as the Quiet Beatle, and I think this happens, with quite a lot of bands, and it's the person who isn't well known as the writer, or sort of almost is rather inconspicuous by his just by being there. And then later on in life, you find out that he's written some of the best songs that they played. That happens quite a lot, I think.
Yeah, I was in a band for quite a few years when I was at London as a just leaving after college, after leaving drama college. But it was, I didn't write in that band, but as we went on, these two brothers, they did all the writing. I started sort of doing more and more, but I think is that quite a normal thing, is it, in bands, is it?
Well, I don't know. I thought, because I remember when Robbie Williams left Take That, and he was like, I've written some really nice songs, and I think I could do this on my own. That kind of thing, and you think, well, Gary Barlow's the writer. So you think with the Beatles, it's, Lennon and McCartney. So to find out that George Harrison's written some of their greatest songs, I think it's a bit of an eye-opener when you find that out.
I think as well, I think Robbie Williams, he may have had the help of Guy Chambers, did he? I think. Wasn't he the songwriter with Robbie Williams, or didn't he help sort of produce all of that, his solo stuff?
That's probably true, yeah.
I don't know. It's very different these days. I remember there's some well-known people, should I say, out there that have offered me, because I'd written a few songs at the parties over. They asked if they could use it, and I said, well, yeah, just give us a credit. And they went, oh, you can't, I'll have to have the credit.
Eh?
And I thought, that was the weirdest thing. I went, nah, you're all right, don't worry about it. But it's like, the people that I know have worked with that are quite well known, and they said, yeah, I'd have to take the credit for it. And I thought, how does that work? No. He didn't write it. No, sorry.
But anyway, something about George. It comes to Wrexham Saturday the 16th of March. Can't wait for it, mate. To anybody that missed it at Theatre Clwyd because of the snow, they've really got to get themselves over to William Aston Hall, because it's a terrific night out. There's no getting away from it. Yeah, no, it'll be a great night, and it'd be great to be in Wrexham as well and get to perform there finally. So. Yeah. I think I've got my accountant in that night, so I'll definitely have to do a good job. Fantastic. Let me just ask you about Shirley, your other half, Shirley Ballas, of course, and we're reading in the paper that she may be going into Big Brother. Is this something you can tell us about?
I can't comment on anything to do with anything like that. You know that, Andy.
Well, I'm expecting to see you on Big Brother one day, or I'm a Celebrity, I think, would be ideal for you.
Do you think so? We'll see.
Well, I've seen some of the things you've eaten in the past, so yeah. Daniel Taylor, it's been a treat to speak to you yet again, my friend. Thanks ever so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. And I'm really delighted that Clwyd's now taken sort of the reins on the Aston Hall as well. I think they're going to they've done such a brilliant job at Clwyd over the years. It's just really, I'm delighted, that they're sort of running the Wrexham thing there now as well. So yeah, really cool, really cool. It'd be good to see you, mate. You coming along you're coming on Saturday the 16th, yeah?
Definitely, yeah. No worries about that.
Brilliant, great
Cheers,
stuff.
Mate. You take care of yourself.
Will do. Cheers, Andy, and you, mate.
Ta-da. So, something about George, the George Harrison story, will be playing at the William Aston Hall Saturday the 16th of March. It is an absolutely corking show. Do not miss it. If you're a George Harrison fan, you will love it. Box office number for the William Aston Hall, 01352 344 101. That's 01352 344 101. Go on. Support your local theatres, ladies and gentlemen. They won't be there forever if you don't.
Stage and Screen with Andy Snowden. Let us know what you want to hear on WhatsApp with the number 01978 540 410. We love local. Calon FM.